This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, we'll call the meeting of the legal committee meeting for Thursday, July 27th, 2023. It is now 2:06. We'll call this meeting to order. With the clerk, please call the roll.
Chair Hildebrand,
Present.
Councillor Arnold, Councillor Orpissa, and Councillor Corn.
Here.
You have
Okay. Councillor Orpissa.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, I move that we adopt the agenda with the item number 5 being removed.
Second.
And then all the other ones moved up accordingly.
Okay. I've got a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented, removing item number 5, which is an ordinance for business registration amending chapter 7. All those in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Being none, so moved. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes for Tuesday, June 7th, 2023.
Move, we accept the minutes,
Second.
So I have a motion and a second approving the minutes from the meeting of Tuesday, June 27th. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Being none, so moved. Next item, we would like to, so I guess I always like to move up the departmental reports so you all don't have to stay around all day. So we can start making that move it up on the agenda item. We won't have to do that in the future. So,
You want a motion?
Do we have to do a motion?
yeah.
No. This was just, agenda's moving forward.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion, we move to item 8 on our agenda. As next order of business.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to move item 8 as our next order of business. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Being none, so moved. So our item, city clerk, which is page 132. Do we need a city clerk or are you going to take care of that?
I'm gonna take care. We don't have really nothing to report for this month.
Yeah.
We don't have too many IPA requests, about 27 last month. There was 9 resolutions passed and no ordinance for last month.
Any questions? Any members? Okay. We'll let the report stand as is. Next item will be on the Human Resource Department.
Afternoon, members of the committee. So I'm just going to hit on some little highlights on our report, if that's okay. So our fire department had open tryouts on July 8th. We had 30 individuals show up. We had 19 pass the course. For the first time ever, we did have our first female pass the course with 4 minutes and 44 seconds. So I'm actually proud to say August 11th, we'll be bringing on 17 new recruits, including the one female.
That's awesome.
Some new doors for us. So.
That's awesome.
And, stand for any questions.
Any questions? I noticed on your vacancy, or your vacant positions by department, I don't see the fire department on here.
Fire department's going to be on the last page, and they actually have 12. At 12, and we're bringing on 17.
Well, my packet doesn't on the last page.
There's 3 different slides on my Excel sheet.
We only received 1. Oh, there they are. I didn't see it over there. Thank you. That's what's right there. So we're not doing too bad. If you take them out, those are going to get filled. So we're down to 53 vacancies.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Very good. Any other questions? Next item would be the safety department.
Yes, sir. Legal committee, I'm glad to be here and thank you for asking for this information. In June, we had 21 accidents or incidents with motor vehicle accidents being 7 of those. 4 of those motor vehicle accidents were third-party caused completely. Again, we had 21 incidents or accidents. We did have 2 of those were citizen complaints that we investigated and found were unfounded towards the city.
Good.
Stand for questions.
Anyone have any questions? Being none, thank you all.
Yes, sir.
Good day.
You as well. Okay, next item is a regular item, our RH Roswell Air Center lease agreements. First one being the Roswell lease renewal CAVU, considering recommending approval to authorize them to enter into a lease agreement. Ms. Lanford.
We've got 2 renewals of Cabo. This first renewal is to consider recommending Cabo to enter into a renewal request for their land parcel of 8 acres. This is the area that they have a teardown pad and where their dismantling takes place out on the airfield. Cabo is requesting this renewal from an ATS assignment of leases. This is one of the 2 renewals available. So this was denied to them in the year was originally due. They were instructed that we would not be renewing with them. We've gone back to the table and been able to renegotiate a better outcome. And with that, the date is retroactive back to February 1, 2019 as the beginning date, because it does say that there's successive renewals, and the party was okay with that. So we went ahead and went back February 1, 2019 and January 31, 2024. And this will be, lease renewal will increase with an annual rent amount of $49,611.84, due in 12 monthly installments of $4,134.32, which is 14 cents per square foot.
Mr. Chairman, so if you look at page 9, part of the reason why this renegotiation was necessary, in my view, is covered in this. This was a lease assignment from ATS Roswell Inc. In order for the initial assignment to have been valid, there's a provision where ATS had to come good on all of their debts.
Right.
This was signed 5 years and 11 months ago. They never did. So we are at a point where technically Cabo, but for some reason, as you can see on page 10, the mayor, and it was attested, they executed an amendment they executed the assignment anyway, even though they hadn't come due. So we're in an awkward position where we're owed money from a group that bounced 5-6 years ago almost. The statute of limitations would be running next month. It's about 50,000. And so privately, if we would, I can call you guys privately, or we go into closed session later to discuss how you'd like to resolve this.
Yeah.
But I don't see a good way to, I don't believe there's a good legal mechanism, nor do I think it's beneficial to us as a city to be going after Cabo for that one.
Right.
So they're paying tenant. They haven't missed a payment in ever. So this lease is a good value as far as the FAA is
So
concerned.
technically though, by this assignment, they were responsible. They're not technically?
No, because the assignment specifically says there's no assignment until they square up.
Okay,
So
so the assignment was really not valid,
the assignment was invalid,
right?
but they paid the rent every day or every month. So
Right.
if there had been a disagreement with Cabo in the past 5 years, it would have been a month-to-month contract.
So what we're doing here is going back to the original date and bringing it forward. Is that what we're,
Right. So we renegotiated.
from
So this-
February 1 of 19?
No, for what would have been the renewal in the assigned lease.
Okay,
So they will have a 5-year lease starting a year ago.
but it's a new lease with them.
Correct. So we're cut out
What
ATS.
was our old rate?
Oh, gosh.
Do you know what our old rate was?
I think,
They've been on a continuum of just CPI increases since the beginning of the assignment, when it was the assignment.
Is this rate paying them, or this lease calls for the same as they're paying now, or did we get a rate increase?
it did go up. I thought it went up 4 6 cents.
Were they 10 cents or?
I to know what they were at before. I would have to go.
But this is our current market rate.
Yes.
Yeah, it's unimproved land, which is the lowest possible is 10 cents a square foot. This is 14.
Okay.
If you want to go to the next slide, it kind of shows where they're located. Originally, when we came to the Airport Advisory Commission, the tenant wasn't going to accept the original parcel, the land, because ATS, the original owner, had constructed this tear down pad and had planned on putting a building and such back here. So this really is unusable, undeveloped, not good for the operation. So we renegotiated the parcel. We didn't reduce the parcel at all. We kept them at their 8 acres.
Okay. Any other questions?
Move adopt the lease.
Pardon?
Move for adoption of the lease.
Under
Move it over to the Frisco City Council.
consent or?
Yeah, that's the lease consent.
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion to approve the Kivu lease and placed on the consent agenda for next council meeting. All those favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed, same, being none, so moved. Next item on the agenda is another lease with Kivu.
Yes. This is additional lease renewal for building 1770. It resides in the middle of the air center. They use it as a distribution area for the parts that they dismantle. They were originally with Bergman. Bergman leases were assigned to them. That's why you have that lovely book of all of the history, and I apologize for that. So they're asking for us to honor the 2 of the 3 renewals available with that lease assignment. We would begin August 1, 2023, ending July 31st, 2028. The lease is renewed with an annual CPI of 3.70 because they are on 3% of whichever is greater on that renewal. And the new rent amount is $20,192.49 per year with 12 monthly installments of $1682.71, making it $2.30 per square foot per property.
Any questions?
You can see the location of the middle of the airfield.
That's about 40, Mr. Chairman.
Hmm?
That's in the back 40.
Yeah, yeah. As long as we're getting market rate and a CPI, that's all. Well,
I'm all looking out. Don't look at me. Guy up on the end, so he's ready.
It was hard for me to follow this one. But I'll make the motion. I motion, Mr. Chair, that we send to City Council, and I'm going to say consent agenda, so nobody gets confused, to send to consent agenda to authorize Kivu Aerospace to enter into lease renewal request 2 of 3 for building 1770 located at the RIAC.
Second.
I have a motion and a second to approve the CAVU aerospace lease for building 1770 to be placed on the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same, being none, so moved. The agenda is the lease with the Walker Aviation Museum. Ms. Lanford, again.
This is to consider renewing the Walker Aviation Museum to enter into a lease for their space at the terminal. It consists of 930 square feet. They have been on annual leases. We agreed to move forward with a 5-year lease agreement with the Aviation Museum beginning August 1st, 2023 and ending July 31st, 2028. The tenant agrees to pay the landlord the rent sum of $4,004.10 annually with 12 monthly installments of $338.67. For the first year of the lease, each year after, the rent will be increased by 3% or the latest CPIU. This rent, we did increase by 3.7% from their last year lease, and they are paying $4.37 a square.
Any questions? Being none, I'll accept the motion.
Chairman, I move forward the lease with Walker Aviation Museum on to the consent calendar at the next Roswell City Council meeting.
Second.
So I have a motion to move to the consent agenda for the next council meeting, the authorization to approve the Walker Air Museum lease. Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Being none, so moved. Next item on the agenda is the Roswell Air Center lease with Carlton Walker. Ms. Lanford, again, please.
Thank you. This is to consider recommending approval to authorize Carlton Walker to enter into a lease for Team Hangar Space 119-2, consisting of 1,002 square feet, more or less. And this is just for personal aircraft storage space. He actually has another one, but they are offset when we renew. So this one's due now. And this has increased also by 3.7% CPI, and the new rate will be $217.20 per month with an annual payment of $2,606.39. They will, it will be for 12 months again from August 1, 2023, ending July 31, 2024.
Any questions by anyone? Councilor?
Mr. Chair, I move that we send this to General Services. I'm sorry, General Services. I had my mind.
General Services.
City Council under consent agenda. To
So we have a motion and a second.
Yeah, be quiet now.
I got Counselor Arnold here, so I don't have to make any more motions.
You're motioned out now. She's got all the rest of them. May get the record show that Counselor Arnold has joined the meeting. So I have a motion and a second to put on the consent agenda approving the lease with Carlton Walker at the Roswell Air Center. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Being none, so moved.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir. Counselor.
this next item, I'm going to recuse myself. I have an ongoing business relationship with one of the contractors, so it would be beneficial for me not to enter any discussion or vote on this issue.
I appreciate that and thank you for bringing it to our attention. So the next item on the agenda is the consider approval for operational costs that exceed $60,000 for janitorial and temporary staffing services at the Roswell Air Center. Ms. Griego.
Chairman and the committee, we have 3 RFPs that would require approval by council. 2 of them are janitorial services, which means janitorial, one for the terminal and one for the Area building. The third one is for Elwood staffing for the 2 temporary labor positions that we currently have that take care of the land side. And I would appreciate a recommendation for the city council.
Councilor.
I do have a question on the temporary positions. Are we getting temporary positions because we can hire full timers from?
Yes, this is less expensive than we would be able to hire one.
Okay.
And we have had those.
Yeah, these are vendors we've been currently using, correct?
Yes.
And if I recall, we get reimbursed on the ILEA building, as I recall. So That's 100% reimbursement from, I guess, State Department. Is that who we lease that building to? So there's really no out of pocket for us. Any further discussion? Counselor Arnold, guess what? It's your turn.
It's my turn, I knew it. Okay, so, Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the operational costs that exceed $60,000 for janitorial and temporary staffing services at the Roswell Air Center to be added to the consent agenda.
Second.
I was about to say,
Okay.
you're falling behind over there.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second that we place upon the consent agenda for the next council meeting for making approval for the operational costs that exceed $60,000 for janitorial and temporary staffing services at the Roswell Air Center. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Let the record show 3-0.
No. Show me his voting.
That's what I said, 3-0.
Oh, okay.
You had a no.
I'll have to take my shoes off, Mr. Chairman.
You were not allowed to vote. You just confused yourself.
Yeah.
I
I lost track. We added one and I forgot. That's my excuse and I'm sticking to it.
I wanted the record to show that you did not vote.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda will be the approval of the ranking for the capital projects. Ms. Griego.
Yes, report to advisory committee has reviewed these projects. We listed item 1 as Southeast Development Phase 2, water line. Second one was BLM tanker base. Both of those will be covered under a grant. We just recently received the grant for the Castaway DOT, $5.5 million. And we believe that enough remaining funds from the county for the water line. So we're asking that our number 1 project now be the airport lighting for the new parking lot, which didn't include any, and a backup generator.
Hey, can you tell us the item number on the list?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes.
4 and 3.
For
You're calling those 1 and 2 now?
Yes, sir.
number 4 is number 1?
Number 4 is number 1, yes, sir.
Okay.
So let's go through this again because
Yeah.
it's a little slow. Long day yesterday, so far been a long day today. Okay, the airport parking is number 1.
Yes, sir.
The backup generator is number 2.
Yes, sir.
And number 3 is the tanker base.
Tanker base was funded.
It's funded.
So item number
So it comes off.
14 and item number 9 are funded.
Those are funded.
Oh, I need to-
14 and 9 are
I
funded,
just need to line them out.
right?
Yeah. I know about number 9, 14. I was just made aware of that, so that's a good thing.
Where are we on item 1? We've already spent some funds out there, or we've accumulated.
The $2 million.
Yeah.
And we are looking at the cost for a new conveyor belt for the packaging. We've expand use those funds to enhance the packaging.
Yes. Have we expended all those?
We have not expended anything on that.
Nothing at all. So that money's sitting there
That came in this session.
in this session, right? So it's sitting there, right?
Yeah, we are getting the design and bid work ready to go.
Right. So that's why that's off the list, correct?
If I can quickly explain the next one, I'm doing the media class on,
Okay.
and they're looking at me.
Okay. Go right ahead.
Operational policies and procedures is a policy that was issued back in 2005. It's only been amended in 2010. This is going to be for the second amendment to it. I updated it just by changing some language in there from the airport manager to director.
Yeah.
There is I do take the director off, the city manager as a person that can do contracts. And I believe that's pretty much it. I just cleaned it up. We have none of these in file. I'm trying to clean.
Clean thing, yeah, okay, thank you.
And then I did want to kind of having the manager be the contract signer is going to avoid some of these direct issues that came up with groups that are uncollectible.
Yeah.
Or at least it's not.
Yeah. So let me just ask a question. Do we not have a backup generator at the airport terminal?
We do not, sir.
We do not.
No, so if there is an outage, which we have experienced, the mag locks on the doors lock. We had an airplane coming in, so we had passengers locked out.
Yeah.
Not get into the terminal. And so that causes a delay for the air service. So it's pretty critical. We have a natural gas line already dedicated for the generator, which is never.
So this is the third structure that we do not, facility, we do not have backup generators on.
And the safety critical one at that.
Very critical. My estimation is that should be number one on the list.
Would this be credited back to our TSA situation?
Either one of these will be. But
I had to ask.
I somehow believe a backup generator is more critical than lights are because of the safety and welfare of individuals. If power does go out, like you said, you can't get into the building. It just boggles my mind why this has never, ever been addressed.
But of course, this is recommendation from staff. This is what they want on the priority list.
Right.
But when we vote or take action at city council, it doesn't mean that we're going to.
Yeah, so all we're going to take is the top two off of here anyway. It doesn't matter how we rank them, right? So, okay.
I think we both felt that they were equally critical for safety, so one probably is a little bit.
Yeah.
It's impactful for any parking lot as well, so I think we felt both important.
Two members of the air commission really wanted those lights to go up, which is how that vote went down.
Quick question. Mr. Chair,
Yes.
so the backup generator, would it also, if the lights in the parking lot go out, would it actually cover that area as well?
I am not sure. I would have to, well, the parking lot lights that are there, yes. The parking lot lights that are not there, no. So,
Yeah, that's my point. You actually have to have the generator.
Hopefully we would put, hopefully we would put LED, solar, and battery
yes.
is what you would hope.
Oh,
those
that's,
lights
I had a little bit of a finger crossed on that one, but you
Yeah.
never know.
That's right.
Okay.
Okay,
I was just chicken or egg. Wasn't sure which one came first.
okay. Do I get a motion? Any further discussion? No? You want to pick on Counselor Arnold again, make her catch up?
Yes, you got to catch up.
She can handle this one.
You're right.
Pictures be late.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. I'll do it again. You just watch.
If she does it again, we know she enjoys doing the.
So Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve ranking of Roswell Air Center capital projects to include number one being the new airport parking lot lighting and number two, backup generator for consent. Can it go on consent? No.
No.
Four.
He's just going to go on a list and then we'll
Okay.
pick
Vote
up
on
Okay.
We're going to have to
stickers and,
list.
And I won't direct it anywhere. I'll just put my period.
yeah, there you go. Yeah. Have a motion, do I have? And a second to place on the ICIP list for the Roswell Airport, the airport parking lot lighting and a backup generator. All those in favor, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, the same. Being none, so moved. Next item on the agenda is now what was item 6, or was, it is item 6, which is the New Mexico Open Meetings Act, amending the resolution 23-01. Did we miss one? Did I fight that? Oh, yeah, I did. I'm sorry. Number 4, I'm sorry. The operational policies and procedures that Ms. Craig was talking about before she had to leave. So who's going to take this on? Are you going to take this on, Counselor?
The policies and procedures? Yes.
Ms. Lanford?
So the operational policies and procedures do help us to keep systems in place for the dismantling of aircraft, the aircraft parking, the storage of aircraft. So this basically provides us a document to give some guidelines to the tenants on what's expected of them. So that's why this document was made originally. And so while we were going through our files, we do not currently have a signed copy from any of the tenants that these regulations would apply to. And so we made the amendments or the updates on it so that we can have a new document. And it allows most director and myself to go to the tenant and get it re-signed. And with new signers that are current authorized signers instead of somebody that might be from 2010. So we can have conversation with them about expectations. And so this really is a housekeeping item for us.
Okay. Any questions? Counselor?
Mr. Chairman, on page 118, item F, where it talks about the operator shall employ trained personnel. The numbers is required to meet minimum standards and requirements. And down at the bottom, it says you've got the person with the ratings appropriate to work being performed and who holds an airframe and or a power plant, because they're not the same, they're one or the other, or a repairman certificate, which is really a third. And then it says, and one other person not necessarily rated. I question who did the research, because I think the industry standard is something different than just one-on-one.
These are straight from the AC that dictates our minimum standards. So we took the language right from the minimum standards.
Minimum standards from where?
From the AC that dictates them is where that came from. So I don't know if this is an upgrade. This actually is on my document. It's Ms. Griego's document. But if we need to change something, we can do that, or we can verify that standard and amend it as needed.
Mr. Chairman, in my aviation career, I haven't dove very deep in the maintenance side of things, except I know what needs to be done, you know, and how to kind of get it done. But it's my recollection that you can have up to 5 people under the supervision of one A and P instead of just one. So I'm just kind of questioning that.
I think that's a minimum of them. They have to have a minimum of that standard.
Didn't say that though.
That's not what it says.
Their part 145 will supersede whatever we have here.
And Mr. Chairman, back whenever I had a repair station license, basically you can word that document where you don't have to have an A and P present. So I think that we need to have a look-see at the current federal
What
section
section are you in, sir?
Huh?
What section?
7F,
Thank you.
page 118.
Page 118.
118.
It's under comprehensive public liability. No, it's under, it's some section F.
Yeah, it's in section 7, section F. And there's justification for more people because it gives you an opportunity to train somebody. And one-on-one training, which is great, but it's very expensive if you're going to teach the guy to take an engine off the 737. It's a multiple man job to begin with. One guy can't go out there with his crescent wrench and take one off, I guarantee you. And so But one guy and somebody that's seen it done once before helps that. And then maybe have a third person there as a trainee, but you just have one licensed guy on the job. I think you ought to have two more out there. I think the standard's 5. It's been a long time since I've looked at that stuff because I'm not current on that.
Is that under MRO or is that under the
Well-
65 or 65?
I can't recall. I'm pretty good with those numbers usually, but I can't recall. And then it's all dependent on what's on their certificate, their repair station. And so you go down there to Aircel, it may be a 10-to-1 in their certificate. Well, we got to accept that because,
That's correct. It's already accepted by the FAA, so that's.
Mr. Chair, Counselor, would amending subsection F to put a period after manner and deleting the rest after it work out then? Because we would just, and then to meet the minimum FAA. So insert FAA after minimum. And so the operator shall have in his employee trained personnel in such numbers as are required to meet the minimum FAA standards and requirement set forth in an efficient manner.
that
That'd
would,
be acceptable.
That's acceptable.
that would do it.
Yep.
Because then you're.
That way you cover it either in the regs or by approval by the local office. I don't know where you get a certificate to work on 121 aircraft. We did it with the stuff, which at the time was in Albuquerque. So I
It
know
did
that.
pique my curiosity. Then I don't know.
Yeah, and I know that the Lubbock Visto, when I met with them a couple of weeks ago, are very keen on our MROs, but I don't know if it's just because they need to know that they're here or if they're actually part of the compliance section on their repair station license. I don't know. When I was there for, so I didn't.
They are the safety inspectors for our.
Yeah, but do they approve they may be a part of it,
Right.
but are they just have to go look at their certificate hanging on the wall, see if it was the Lubbock Visto, which is the new flight standard district office for this area now. Instead of Albuquerque, I don't understand that, but that's the way they did it. So I would suggest Mr. Hess's language would probably get us by. That way you got an either or. So we can move this on.
Good call there, Counselor. Okay,
You want to state that amendment, make sure the clerk gets it correct?
Sure, I've got it in here, but page 118, subsection F, the agenda is approved, but the packet is approved, shall read, the operator shall have in his employee trained personnel in such numbers as are required to meet the minimum FAA standards and requirements set forth in an efficient manner. Period. Everything after that will be deleted.
That'll work.
be fine.
Okay.
Okay.
Put that amendment on. Some more questions?
Well, any more questions? I just need a motion to get that across the table
Well, okay. I move that we advance this to the city council
as amended.
as amended.
You want to do it full council? Consent.
What do you want? You're the pro tem, what do you want?
Consent.
Okay, on consent.
I can
I was
tell you
ordered
all.
by my pro tem here. Put it on consent.
Right.
Yes, ma'am. I mean, nobody else, none of the rest of the counselors understand
No,
this stuff anyway, except me, and I don't really understand it because it's the maintenance side, not the flying side.
yeah. I appreciate you using your expertise here. Really do. So I have a motion
I second it.
and a second to place on the consent agenda as amended, the operational policies and procedures. Further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same, being none, so moved. Now we can get to item 6.
About 5.
We pulled that.
Oh, you pulled it. Okay, so
Yes.
I know, that's what
Wake
happens
up,
when you're not
wake up.
here.
Wake up.
Did you so you tabled, just tell me what happened to it, please.
It got pulled.
No, I know, but it got pulled for good, or is it gonna?
No, it's
No.
it's
Gonna get.
it's just temporarily. It'll hopefully come back next.
I was actually gonna table it myself, so that's why I just want to know what happened.
So hopefully it'll come back next or when appropriate.
Yep. Understand.
So, okay.
Open meetings act.
It'll start your turn.
Yes. So we are just trying, we just brought this forward because legal is now moving to 2 PM. Is that correct? Yes.
What?
Legal is moving to 2 PM.
Yes.
Okay, so that's all we're changing in this. So we're just making the
No.
resolution, updating it to 2 PM instead of 4 PM.
Yep. Until somebody changes it again. That will be our time frame. Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you gotta survive, nothing, two times a month, you can get your map in at 2:00.
Yeah.
You sure?
So that's actually
All my time,
my
right?
napping time too.
Oh. Juan, you and I could run the show, buddy. I'm gonna be asleep, sit here in the chair, we'll just take off. That's right. Make a motion.
Well, actually, I wanted a discussion.
Okay,
Um,
please.
Yeah, because I read it, and while I actually love the idea of a 2:00, I did have some concern about accessibility to the public, but well, I was kind of going back and forth, but I just kind of wanted to hear your thoughts on public access to a 2:00 meeting. It was actually a long discussion with myself. And then I was like, but then there's people who work at night, so they can't.
You need to quit having these discussions with yourself.
Well, as long as I don't answer,
You're fine.
then I'm fine.
Yeah, you're
I
fine.
can just talk.
And I understand portion of what you're saying there, but, business is conducted during the day, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Our staff works here during the day.
Right.
And to keep staff over
Okay,
into the evening, I don't think is fair to our staff.
okay,
That,
Not efficient either.
well, no, it's not efficient. And if you've got a question, how are you going to get a question answered at 7 o'clock at night?
Right.
That may require someone who's already gone home for the day.
Yeah.
And I think this is a move to be a more efficient process for our staff. I'm not slighting the community at all, but and everybody, they can always be online. Hopefully that people do that, but this is not a change to slight the community. This is a change to be a more efficient way to conduct a meeting with our staff. So, and then any items that we have, if citizens are concerned, will always be placed on the council agenda, which will be at 6 o'clock in the evening. And Mr. Councilor Oropesa always asks if there's any item placed on that a consent agenda, is there anyone here who wants to speak about it? So we're giving, I believe, an ample opportunity for citizens to be involved and to express their concerns or questions. So that's my feeling on it.
okay. Mr. Chair, if there's no further discussion, I'd like to adopt a resolution amending Resolution 23-01 pursuant to the New Mexico Open Meetings Act.
Second.
On consent, or do you want this for full council?
Consent.
Okay. You okay with
Second.
You're okay with that? Okay. So I have a
Yeah.
motion and a second for resolution for the New Mexico Open Meeting Act, amending resolution 23-01, be placed on the consent agenda. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same, being none, so moved. Next item on the non-action item, which is the Hoorah Event Center for a temporary conditional use permit. Who is going to talk about the Hoorah Event Center?
That's not what I was thinking.
Mr. Chair, we've got a crack team here to address this for you. So
I'm gonna need some, I hope so, because I'm gonna need some explanation here.
all right, so the Hoorah Event Center is also known as the Raceway. So I was asked by Councilor Arpesa to dig into this a little bit, and also by Councilor Arnold, because it concerned, there's been a lot of noise complaints, and this has been a bit of a drama going back to 2020. Back in 2020, the Raceway agreed to never conduct business after 10 p.m.
Yeah.
For reasons beyond my knowledge, the community development director allowed them to continue until 11 p.m. on a temporary occupancy permit without prior written approval for any unforeseen circumstance, which to me is a little looser language than I would have agreed to, but that's what it was. However, the permit was only active from May 1921 to March 1921 to May 1821. Nothing in legal's records nor the records that I was able to access at planning indicate that they actually have a certificate of occupancy to operate presently. And I'm not sure in planning's here, is that the correct? They don't have a full certificate of occupancy.
They've never been issued a full
Right.
occupancy.
And when were they last issued a temporary? The last one I saw in the files was in 21.
I think that's it.
I believe that was the last. So, yeah, so from legal's perspective, they shouldn't be open. And I've advised management to that effect. However, the broader concern when it comes to noise pollution from this is that they are pretty, from what the code inspectors, from what Mr. Miller Butts tells me, they're real close to getting their certificate of occupancy, and we're not. It's illegal to deny it if they meet it. Right? We're gonna follow the law there. But the zoning code is very permissive when it comes to motorsports. It pretty much lets them run, and our noise ordinance doesn't have a real enforcement provision because it's a little, well, it's not an exemplar of clarity. And so there's two ways to address this as for the councilor's constituents. One would be to amend the zoning code, and I would never, or I generally don't recommend that because first, the way it was written is in compliance with the master plan, so we shouldn't be amending it willy-nilly until we have a new master plan. The second problem is this would be considered downzoning. And so whenever downzoning is when you have, if you have somebody with a high level of use, so the fewest restrictions, if you add restrictions upon them, courts will consider that a limited taking, and you have to allow them to amateurize their investments. We clearly are aware of a lot of investments they put in because we've gone back and forth. So a not unusual rule is 5 to 8 years to meet due process requirements in New Mexico, which of course would defeat the purpose of wanting to regulate the noise. So the other alternative is to make, which I would recommend, is make reasonable adjustments to our noise ordinance that protects residential areas. Presently, the way the ordinance is written says there can't be noise made in the residential area, as opposed to you can't add noise from another area to a residential area. That's an important legal distinction. And the second part is there is not a hard and fast rule about timelines when noises are allowed. Exceptions to that rule for certain public goods, say an ambulance, and also an objective measurement for what is too loud. So a decibel level is typically what you want to see. Somebody stole what I had printed off the printer because I had a bunch of ordinances for you guys to review at your leisure. I will email them to you. For those in the audience who are interested, it would have been Cruces, Santa Fe, Albuquerque, Farmington.
Someone stole those?
Well, I think somebody just had a print job below mine and took them
I just didn't know
all.
why someone actually had a patent to steal something.
Well, they thought I was publishing something much, the next great American novel.
Okay.
But what I'd suggest is something of a Frankenstein's monster of Farmington, Albuquerque, and Cruces.
Nice.
Which would outline, broadly speaking, hours where construction and normal business sounds would occur. Typically, those are going to be something from 7 to 7. In Roswell, because of how hot it gets in the summer, we might increase that for certain nighttime activities. This is something your input would be valued on. We'd have exceptions for things such as high school sports. I don't think anybody here really, like, if it's Roswell versus Goddard and it goes to 10:30, I think we're all okay with that. And there could be other exceptions, ambulance, police cars, but you'd want to think about that. These lists have enumerated exceptions. The last part is in actual enforcement. The Roswell, while the council has added 10 new police officers to the force in the past year and a half, which is pretty impressive, these aren't high priority calls by their nature. So what we want to do is create in the ordinance a part where if officers are involved, they will actually have machinery to measure decibel levels, but we'll create a presumption based on lay witnesses that could also be enforceable in court. Santa Fe and Cruces have this option. I think Farmington might also, where it says if it is 10 o'clock and you are more than 3 feet away from your property line and more than 3 feet away from a wall or some sort of acoustic reflector, and you can hear sound coming out of your property, that is now too loud. Then you'd say that's actually a really low volume, but that's about what we're talking at right now is 55 decibels.
Yes. Can you add vibration to that as well?
Yes, and so that's something that Albuquerque and Santa Fe include is car vibration. So if somebody's really got their bass going and it's awesome.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, we're not going to call the cops if it's like a really good song, right? But the second they move away from Queen, then we're going to have some problems. And yeah, so acoustic vibration would be felt. I would say for the purpose of the law, it would be anything your eardrum could pick up or that you could feel corporally. And so for me, I think we need a part where an officer who's trained with a device that aren't too expensive, they're a couple $100s on Amazon and they seem perfectly adequate based on rules of criminal evidence submission. Then we have a layperson can say, yeah, it was 10:30 at night and I heard 20 cars and guess what? The lights were on over at the Motor Speedway. That could also be good enough testimony for trial. And then finally, and then the last part to wrap it all up with a bow is enforcement or a penalty. A lot of cities will step their penalties. So first time might be $100, second time would be a 500, third time we're looking at like jail. If it's really abusive, this would be at the discretion of the code enforcement department, most likely. The city attorney could do it, code enforcement could do it, police could do it. You have options, all three could do it. And the final component of enforcement too is creating it as a special nuisance category. So if somebody's super abusive in our nuisance rules, if you get 4 nuisance calls in a year, you're subject to condemnation potentially. We just throw that sound ordinance as one of the enumerated reasons. These are all options. Like I said, you'll get the ordinances in your email today or tomorrow. And I'd love to discuss it further with you privately as I draft to your needs.
Perfect.
Question, just for my clarification. So you're talking when we write this, you want to put a maximum decibel level with exceptions and then specify those exceptions?
Right. So there'll be a daytime and nighttime decibel level. Certain things are going to be exempted categorically. Oh, I'm sorry. And then there will be exceptions categorically, ambulance.
Right.
Then there will be, and I forgot that permitting is also.
Get permitted.
Yes. So getting permitted for, so a good example is 4th of July. An exception.
Where I was going.
So 4th of July, blow stuff up. You get that day. I think America, that sort of idea. However, let's say 4th of July falls on a Wednesday next year, which I think does it, or is it, no, next year's leap year. It's Thursday because if it's a leap year.
Right.
So July 5th makes a lot more sense for a big fireworks show. So what would happen is if there's a group that wants to put on a fireworks show, they'll submit a permit. They have to show it'd be a hardship standard, which matches a zoning variance rule. It'd be a little lower standard. So whoever wants to come in says, hey, we want to do a fireworks show. It's not on the 4th of July, but it is for 4th of July. And, it's 110 degrees out. We're going to start it at 9 o'clock when it's dark and when people can be out there for their safety. I would say that's enough to have demonstrated hardship to make them do it before the 7 o'clock deadline. They get that one permit once a year.
Okay, so you're crossing two different lines there. Are we going to move forward on specifically a fireworks show? Are we going to do that as a special event permit? Or are we going to do that as a conditional permit through zoning?
That's up to the counselors. Administratively, I'd want to talk with your department because I'd prefer to have it signed by the manager and one elected official, because these are going to be big things.
I agree that, but, pointing out that it falls into a zoning category.
No, so so sorry.
When I start looking at it, I got to think from a zoning perspective, from an enforcement. So I have an entire team over there that's got to be able to follow through on that, but now we're talking after hours, so it's going to end up being PD.
Right. Well, no, but that's the reason why we put the layman standard in there. So if 3 people on the block say, no, that dude was lighting stuff up until midnight and it was super loud, that's enough. We have our 3 witnesses. We do not need cops to initiate a complaint. They could go to you in the morning at code enforcement and say, hey, here's a statement, I'll swear to it, and then you guys can proceed from there.
Okay. And then the other one you were talking about, so I'm sorry.
No, it's a good conversation.
You were getting into, we're talking fees or fines that would be pursued.
That's the other question. So,
Because we don't actually have any teeth from our side that we can pursue that as a fee.
well, so if we make it a fine, you guys can be deputized through my office to take it to the Muni court. And I think that moving forward is a system I'd like to see explored if that's what you guys are willing to do at code enforcement.
I agree.
The other component is we could make a civil system. Josh and I have talked about this, and I'm not convinced the city has general civil powers for for something like this, the way Albuquerque or Santa Fe or Cruces do because they're home rule. We did a civil enforcement provision for the airport because there's a specific carve out in state law that says civil or criminal may be used for airports. So typically, we'd have to lean on the municipal court. We would put in a catch-all provision saying though that injunction is a remedy at the proper court, and that's something so the city could always go in, sue the owner in district court, and have them held in contempt for disobeying, which truthfully is a better stick than any fine we could give it.
But
that would be the lawyers.
Explored.
Yep. All of these are options. I'm just wanting you guys to see what's out there, give some input when we draft. If you want to draft at all.
Well, I think it's something I'm really concerned though now with. We've got a facility that continues to not stay within the parameters of those conditional use permit. Are they operating under a conditional use permit?
Yes.
Yeah, they're not staying inside those parameters. And we've had this discussion before that you all have the right, as we sit right now, to do something about it.
I don't think they do.
Well, I believe we do because we had this discussion at council.
I think they do because there's no certificate of occupancy. It goes through the building code, not the zoning code.
Yeah, we've had this discussion. And because they were trying to make some changes to the conditional use permits and the special use permits, and we said, whoa, you already have it. It's here, just utilize it. And I believe that we had that dialogue, did we not?
Yeah, so the issue with so part of that, so we can now, if the ordinance passed, so any conditional use permit they currently have, zoning can withdraw because they don't have a certificate of occupancy, which is a condition.
Right.
Unless they already have a business license, which that process goes through council. My understanding is they have a business license to operate.
No,
we cannot.
Yeah, no. So they have the right. We can withdraw it, and then they have the right to appeal it.
I think we have the teeth that we can tell these people, look, stop.
I guess from my perspective is if they don't have a certificate of occupancy, no matter what their conditional use permit says, they don't have a right to operate.
I would agree.
But their conditional use permit, it's actually expired. Is there?
Just shut them down.
It was temporary, so there's not even.
They have a temporary, they do not have they have, sorry, let me clarify. a certificate of occupancy that's temporary. They do not have a conditional use permit. Because without a certificate of occupancy, you can't get the conditional use permit.
Counselor.
Like everything.
Basil.
Can I get a clarification? The document that you're referring to that they have, does that say that they can run till 11 o'clock or to 10 o'clock?
It's the same.
I think it said until 10 o'clock unless there were some,
Please be. Yeah. And
some kind of circumstance.
This one? Yeah, see, this is.
Even that was worded fun. This is.
Yeah, because I think when they went before the planning and zoning at the time that they approached it back in 2016, planning and zoning approved them.
Right.
With the till 10 o'clock, but they put that exception that if there was a wreck on the track or rain, then they could go up to 11 o'clock. And of course, you know, there will always be a wreck on the, whether there is one or not. God only knows if it's true or not.
Yes, so to answer your question, they were allowed to operate till 11 for any unforeseen circumstance until May 18th of 21.
That was my point. It's in.
So
it's already.
That is no longer valid.
No longer, that's what I was saying.
As far as legal is concerned,
nothing
they have
out
no
there.
certificate of occupancy, therefore nobody goes in or out for business purposes.
But they're running currently and they plan on running through, I think, in December.
Right, and.
That's probably because they don't, aren't actually up to regs. I don't think they've been informed.
Well, they know that they're not up to regs. They just think they're conditional, as best I can tell, they think they're temporary occupancy certificates indefinite, which is not the case.
Well,
We need to notify.
the city gave them parameters to operate in, and they agreed to it. And now they don't wish to participate in that. I think the issue is in your hands. That's where the issue lies. The rules and regulations and ordinances, whatever conditional use permits, they're there in place. It's up to staff to enforce them.
You know, we've had this discussion with them. Councilor Arnold and I have been in one meeting. And, you know, I think from the perspective of the community, we have told them that it is not our intention to put them out of business.
Right.
Our intention is to make sure that they follow the rules that they agreed to.
So I guess if, just to get your preference, because it's ultimately the manager's discretion, is we can just force the tenant. They're operating as if the 11 o'clock rule is still the rule.
Yes.
Would you be, do you want us just to call them up and say if it's ever after 10 o'clock again, this is their final warning and we're going to shut them down next time?
I think you send them a letter, certified letter saying you think you're operating under that's no longer valid. It ended on this day.
Someone needs to tell them. Yeah, we actually have to disclose that. I think there's,
Yeah, I'd say.
Is that your
I
preference?
just put them on notice.
Okay.
Whoever the registered agent is,
Consider it
let
done.
them respond.
And they generally do not ever start on time. They always fall behind. There's always wrecks, but the wrecks are, the cars are off of there within 2 minutes.
well, it's also, I think we kind of learned that the nature of that course, especially in the summertime, is very difficult to make sure that it's moisturized. I'm not sure. I was listening at the time.
I go to the races, so that's how come I know.
Yeah, they have to
Yeah,
take
bring that up.
that course, and that's why it's a little bit different. But that was kind of, I don't understand why not start earlier. But I do want to say this, Mr. Chair, if I may. Oh, go ahead. I actually really appreciate you hearing on this one, on both parts, for the east side and for the veterans. Because, well, and even myself, living in the historic district, I have original windows, okay? And anytime anyone chooses to come by, and I wish they would play Queen, because it probably would not vibrate my windows like it does. So noise does matter, especially at 2 o'clock in the morning. But anyway, I just wanted to say thank you for hearing us.
You know, and I think the worst part about this situation is there's a neighborhood that is butted right against the track on both sides, north and south.
Yeah.
And so I mean, I live like 1,600 feet away from it, and I hear it loud and clear.
Right.
I can just imagine those people living right next to it,
Right,
what they're going through.
right. Right.
I heard it was my house, and I'm here on the city county line on the other side of town.
Issue
Because they do have, I mean, the time is like 7:30. You'd be lucky if they start around 8, 9.
Really?
Yeah, and it's ridiculous because they just, I don't know why they don't start. There's only know some people that actually race, so we just go and see their kids. And they're always late, constantly.
Well, I think that so it's kind of like having a child if you don't put down limits, and because we're not actually following, and that's kind of what I wondered is where is the enforcement on the other, on the other side? Clearly, if we start saying 10 o'clock, holding to that, showing them that we mean it, and then they'll actually start adhering to starting earlier because they know their time is short.
Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Chair. There's two issues that they're gonna bring up. One is they start later because when it's hot, it's for the engines is their excuse. And I think, is there something in the ordinance that specifies sporting events can go to 11? It's not in the zoning ordinance.
There is.
Yeah, so,
Specific.
Is that a
yeah,
possibility?
so well, here's oops.
So I'm just bringing those two.
And I did hear, but no, I mean, seriously.
Yeah, so the issue is, this is how it's worded. Exceptions to the noise ordinance in residential districts are as follows. Sporting events limited to no more than one event per month and no later than 11 PM. So this is not a residential district. This is industrial. So when we wrote the exception, you can have a sporting event in a residential district, but only once per month. You see why the legislation's a little.
Every week?
Yeah. Yep.
And I would argue that a sporting event noise compared to a racing car is very different.
Car races is a sporting event. It's like we're spending a lot of time and energy on getting airplane races out here. That's a sporting event.
Yeah.
In the broad definition. Motorsports, if you want to get kind of technical.
Yeah, and sporting event is not defined in the code, which of course.
That just means you gotta go back to the broadest definition.
Yep. But yeah, my proposition though is that the way it's worded it says in R1, it's not allowed past 11. But again, the event is happening in industrial. And if you look at other noise ordinances, what they'll say is no person shall cause a sound louder than this loud in an R1 to occur. So what we've regulated there is, in the way I read it, so because this would be criminally prosecuted, you have to read it in the most lenient way possible. And so I'd be saying, yeah, I can't have a block party in an R1 without a permit, but if I have it in a C2 and the R1 hears, that's all right.
Right.
And that's sort of supported by the zoning code because the zoning code says anything in C2 or above gets to open 24 hours a day.
Which goes back to the original question that you and I were discussing. If they were brought up to code, is the noise still an issue?
Right.
Does that hinder?
If they're brought up, if they meet the building code obligation, I don't think we have a good way to stop them from being loud after 10. And that's why the noise ordinance is what I suggest.
Good.
But in the meantime, we can continue monthly temporaries so long as they stay quiet after 10, if that's what management and counselor, that's what the policymakers want, we can accomplish that.
Well, the problem is that they haven't.
Right.
So I keep track of it every single Saturday.
Could I have a copy of that? Sure, you can have it. Thank you.
There's been a couple of times that they've gone over. One time they went past 11. There's been several times that they have actually stopped around 10 o'clock.
In the colder weather.
Well, the other issue that I see here is a possible stumbling block is if they go past 11 one time during a month, or if they do it every time they race. Because they're allowed, if I understood your verbiage correctly, once a month, we really can't do anything.
If they were making the noise in the R1, we couldn't. Or,
So we
yes,
can't even go into the industrial.
yeah, the way like I said, I'm being, the most lenient reading of the law, the noise ordinance does not restrict noise in industrially zoned areas. And that's how you have to read any criminal law.
Sticky wicket.
So yeah, that's why I say, right now, for this week, if code enforcement wants to go over, they say you don't have a certificate of occupancy, don't open up or we're gonna tape you, that would be entirely appropriate. But once they do have their true certificate of occupancy, we have no enforcement for noise against them, is my current legal read.
I concur with that thought process.
And where are they in their certificate of occupancy?
I couldn't tell you.
That would be.
Miller Butts.
To talk with the building official about that one. All he told me last that they were close to meeting the requirements. But I don't know any specifics on that.
Last week he said they're close, but he said that 6 months ago.
We visited them. Miller and I went out there in April, where they started their racing season. And we talked to, you know.
I think this is an issue right now, however, you all want to operate within the ordinances that we have and that we address the noise issue as a separate item. But if you feel that you've got the ability to do whatever you got to do, then that you're operating inside the parameters of what the ordinances are and the law. And as long as we're doing that, we're not doing anything wrong. We're not wanting to shut him down. This is it. We already told you what the rules were. So that's what I feel you guys got to, you all have to do.
So I'm kind of confused because I was not a big fan of that conditional use permit rewrite of the ordinance, or that we added, that Mr. Mayers produced. That was, his whole logic behind that was so that he could actually do more out there.
He wanted to be
Right. Well, so now that it's passed, why can't you do something? Because now that you know what I mean? So I'm kind of confused.
Well,
if we
yeah,
pass
so
that to give you guys more power, what's the problem here?
Well, so the part that did pass is helpful because we didn't outline the administrative process for removing a conditional use permit. That's a due process issue, so that did need to be addressed, which is why I support that portion. The other portion, what didn't pass was where the department was starting to get a lot more intrusive into property rules and regulations concerning private property. The reason I didn't support that second part from the legal department's perspective is we'd have to amateurize because it would be a taking, an unlawful downzoning.
Right.
And so his solution was to downzone them so that he could have conditional use permits as a result. And my position was, if you downzone them, they're going to get grandfathered in until they're amortized.
Right.
So that doesn't actually solve the problem. So if we're going to use zoning powers, this is a part of police power, but the police power generally of the city is best affected by standalone ordinances that address a particular problem, which is why, again, I get noise ordinance. We know there's noise pollution. We know that dude rolling at 2 a.m. by our house ought to get a ticket. And our ordinances right now don't exactly provide for that.
Right.
Catch them.
Yeah, you got to catch them, but it also allows, if there's a cop hanging out on a residential street at 2 a.m. trying to hit DWIs, and he can clearly hear the bass shake his car, light him up. That's a ticket right there.
It's usually at gas stations where they do that. but it carries over into the residential.
Right, and again, we need to make the law clear that carryover noise is prohibitive, not where the noise originated from.
Right.
So,
I have a real problem with the train every night.
yeah, I'd love to deal with that. I can hear it from my house.
Oh, I hear it from my house.
Yeah, the problem that federal government has usurped our lowly municipal.
I think, I think that's all.
I know.
You should at least try.
Yes, ma'am.
Don't even.
I'm teasing.
Meredith.
What they have told me, when I visited with them, with the track, is that in order to meet the 10 o'clock, they have been willing to reduce the number of laps, they've consolidated heats, and to try to make that 10 o'clock. I want to pose this question for y'all to consider, is 10 o'clock too restrictive?
It's 10 o'clock what?
Too restrictive.
Yeah.
It depends as to who you ask.
I know.
Right.
I mean, you ask the person that lives right next door to it, absolutely. If you ask somebody that lives 8 miles away from it, it probably
Yeah.
won't matter.
Won't matter to me because I don't hear them.
I live 3.5 miles directly east of there, and I hear them every Saturday.
Yeah.
3.5 miles east.
And it's pretty loud at your location.
It's not as loud as it used to be when it first opened, because I think they put some restrictions on the mufflers.
Yeah.
And I haven't been to the facility, and I know that at one time there was some requirements for them to put up some sound barriers. I don't know if they've ever done that.
They placed some of them up, they did not get the ones on the north side.
But see, to me, that's an issue, because I was in that meeting when that was gonna be a priority for them a number of years ago. We were gonna get that stuff off now, or building off season, so I think those are areas that can be addressed. I agree with Hess. I think the way to tackle this, the ordinance for the sound, because that's gonna benefit us in multiple different areas.
Yeah.
Around the community. Not just there, but many things.
Yep.
I don't disagree, but I think you've got the ability to do what you got to do now. And hopefully come to terms and let them know what's coming next.
So speaking of noise ordinance, I know there's concert, I don't know if this applies to us because it's on fairground, but they have concerts that go on.
Right, and so that's something that falls into the exclusion category. Like during the fair, yeah, maybe you get to run later, but.
And if I could add to that, the fair closes at 10 o'clock, during the week it's open till 11 o'clock on Friday and Saturday night. So
Right, and that's something easily put into, we can say Fridays go later, that's right.
But you also were gonna put a clause in there about special events or
Right.
holidays and.
Special events, holidays could, ultimately, the core of the restriction is, what do you think, what days and what hours need to be quiet?
Yeah.
And that's a policy decision that I can effectuate for you, but I want your input.
Yeah. You can put this on the same schedule as the dust ordinance that never got accomplished.
Yeah, we need to get that
What?
before the spring winds start again.
So pick your poison.
I have a copy.
Do you have the copy of that?
One of the proposals, I don't know how far along.
Yeah,
What the change was, but
No, 'cause I never got the initial, well, I got a draft.
Well, that first proposal came straight out of Las Cruces.
Yeah.
That's all it was a copy of.
I don't think it was the first one.
The first, I had given instruction, I had given a recommendation to look at Cruces and Rio Rancho's ordinances because they were.
The preliminary stuff I saw was just Las Cruces just copied.
And
So
whoever submitted it, copied and pasted because Las Cruces, the draft.
I mean,
multiple times.
yeah, so.
I don't know who that was.
I don't either.
For no public.
Yeah, but that needs to be put back on the table as well, because
Absolutely.
we'll have springtime. Before we know it, it'll be springtime again.
Yeah.
We were fortunate this year that we didn't have that many issues, but yeah. So, okay, we have any more on this topic?
No, Mr. Manager, do you think you got what you wanted to hear out of this?
Yeah, so as you and I talked about previously, some ideas.
Good. So I'm going to open it up for public participation. Ms. Dorhofer.
I just want to give you an observation as a regular person. I was out there 2 years ago helping my friend while they were having a craft show. And there were vehicles moving in. And she says to me, Rita, there is the owner or one of the owners of that. So I'm minding my own business and I walk up there and I tell him who I am, and he heard my name. Sometimes Randy goes out there and goes around, but he was so condescending. He was so arrogant. He said, I don't care what the city does. We bring in a lot of business and we can pay any sort of fines. And I said, you don't care about the people? No, we're running a business here. And I said, good luck to you on that. And I turned around and walked quickly away. But I'm saying that if they don't care about the people, who was there first? Was the community there first, Juan, or was the racetrack there first?
I was there first.
Okay. If he doesn't care about, he just cares about his bottom line, and he said to me, we can afford the fines, and I'm going, all righty, and I just skedaddled. So if you got that kind of attitude.
Sounds like a challenge.
We just found another revenue stream.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, thank you. Thank you for.
Thank you. Is there any other comment from the public? Is there anyone online at all? I don't think so, but.
And actually, even if it's our man interrupt you, Mr. Chair, I do want to, now that they've left, there were some hiccups getting to the training exercise at the airport, but from what I was told, TSA was very happy. So big thanks to Mr. Matthews and working with the fire department, working with the police department, the sheriff's department was helpful. TSA gave good review and high praise for the scenario and response. And that was a compliance provision for us in our settlement. So I'm, Karen Sanders, huge thank you to Karen Sanders. Put that on the record. Karen Sanders.
Karen Sanders, yeah.
So
I think that's a great testament to employees in all those departments that participated. I mean, we even had to close streets down and do all kinds of different things, and that sounded like it was well coordinated and well done. I'm glad you brought that to our attention, but it's, again, Mr. Matthews, I'll just make a statement. I was over at the fire department yesterday morning when they had their push-in ceremony for their 4 new vehicles over there. And the enthusiasm with the firefighters was just amazing. They were just, getting them a new vehicle just changes the attitude of people over there. And I was just like, wow, to see them do it. And the chief told me that one of those vehicles, he thought they were going to rub the paint off of it. They polished it 4 times before the ceremony. And there were retired firefighters there as well, and come and see what was going on over there. And it was just something great to experience, because that's not just a job for them over there. They're building relationships that last for life. And it's a tight bond that they all have over there. And it's just something great to see. But, and even Mike Matthews pushed the vehicle in. They got him out there.
By myself.
They don't tell you the whole thing on the push in. That guy does put a reverse and puts the gas out.
Was Mike the one in the picture with the rope in his teeth?
Yeah. But the thing about it, it's an old ceremony about how this all took place. When they used to have, before they even had horses attached to them. And then when they had firefighting wagons with horses, they had to push those back in because the horses were not going to push them back in for them. And it was just interesting to hear all of that stuff. So I thought it was great. Any other business, any other comments? Factual or non-factual? Would you get that down put that in the minutes? Council Warren said to keep his mouth shut.
She writes it down.
He did not put an expiration period on it. Okay. There being none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.